Hello there and welcome back to the channel. Today we are going to be taking a look at these, the Radiomaster AG01 Mini CNC gimbals for the Radiomaster Zorro and TX12 Radio. Today what I'm going to do is give you an overview, then I'm going to share with you my thoughts on these gimbals at the end and try to tell you if I think they are worth the $99 upgrade cost that they are. Now, just to be clear, Radiomaster have sent me these gimbals for free. However, they have not seen this video before it's been published. They have not had any influence in this video in any way. And as always, I will tell you my opinions as I do with any other review, regardless of if I've paid for the product or not. In this video, I'm also not going to be showing you about the installation element of these gimbals. I'm going to release that as a separate video, which will be linked in the description, and that will cover the how-to on the installation, but I will tell you my thoughts on that in the review element at the end. Anyway, let's get on with it. Let's take a closer look at the gimbals themselves first of all. Okay, so the AG01 Mini from Radiomaster are an upgraded gimbal set for the Radiomaster TX12 and the Zorro. They are a smaller version of the AG01s for the T16S, but they offer that same premium CNC gimbal feel for the smaller radios. The big benefit to these over the standard gimbals is that they are largely metal completely rather than them being plastic like the standard gimbals. However, I will say that I do think the gimbals on the Zorro are actually very, very good as they are, but what these are going to offer you is the benefits that you get from a full metal gimbal, such as quad bearings and just that more solid feel and smoothness on the stick movement. This set, as I've already said, costs $99, so it is an expensive upgrade in the sense of it is around the same cost as the radio itself, but if you are looking to kit out your Zorro to be the best possible version of a Zorro it can be, then you're certainly going to want a set of these. So taking a look inside the box first of all, this kit is the 2 gimbal kit, so this is the full set. They are about, I think, $59 each or $99 if you get them as a pair. They are identical, so they don't come left or right. They come exactly the same, so there's no need to look at both sets. We can take a closer look at just one because that's what we're going to have on both. They come in these nice boxes, obviously with the AG01 info on the back, which lifts out the top, and then inside you'll find the gimbal itself in the center with this bit of foam packaging holding it in place, and then the actual gimbal wrapped up in a bag, and then some of the additional accessories and mounting stuff at the bottom. If we give that a bang to get that out, you'll see we have a little screw bag which consists of a little Allen key as well as an additional spring and some screws, and we'll probably look at them as we move to the installation. And then we've just got a little leaflet which again just shows us about the gimbals, their sizing, as well as some of the specification and features as well. Moving over to the actual gimbals, we'll unwrap it from the bag. Now, the first thing to note is that these gimbals come with the upgraded stick ends on as standard. If you've seen my review on the Zorro, I did mention that the original nuts or the original grips were quite anemic, and Radiomaster have released these sticky nuts for the Zorro. However, these come with them as standard. You can see that it's installed there. It's exactly the same unit, just in silver rather than some of the other colors that you can get. Okay, jumping in and taking a closer look at the gimbal, giving it a feel, you can instantly feel how smooth they are. The stops feel really nice and solid on these gimbals. There is like no flex there at all. You've got that nice CNC metal finish, so they've actually cut the edges that reflect as I move it there. You can see just like on the original AG01s. If we flip them over to the other side, to the business end, looking around, I can see very little plastic. I think there's like a little plastic cover here that goes over the bearing on one side, and there might be one over here. But other than that, everything else appears to all be metal. You've got these tabs top and bottom here. That's what hits the stop screws. So if you want to reduce the travel, you've got those there. It's a bigger tab on one side. So on this side of the gimbal, you can see it's a wide tab. And on the top side of the gimbal here, you can see it's much smaller, but it does look nice and solid. You've got the Hall sensors here located. Again, I believe they're exactly the same as the sensors that we originally had in the Zorro. And then you've got the spring tension adjustment here and down here under the cables, which allows you to adjust the spring tension on the gimbals. Now, I don't know how these are set up compared to the original ones, and I'm not sure if these will allow more tension than the original gimbals. We'll take a look at that in a second. They do give some additional springs, but I'm not sure at this time if that's additional tension or less. That's something I'll look at as we go through with the installation. We obviously have our traditional bar over here for being able to convert it into throttle and being able to add some restriction to that if you want to as well. And overall, I have to say, everything so far feels really nice, feels nice and solid. And whilst the gimbals on the Zorro are very good, these do clearly have a much more premium feel to them compared to the standard ones. As I mentioned, this gimbal features quad bearings, so you've got 2 on each axis. We've got one on this side here. You can just see it under there. There's one here, and then there's one at the top on this side on the horizontal, and one down there on the horizontal as well. It's those bearings added with the much tighter tolerances on the CNC metal that gives the gimbal its smooth feel and that much more solid feel compared to what you get on plastics. Just to have a look at that spring tension and adjustment range that you've got on the gimbals, having had a bit of a closer look, they are currently set to their maximum. So this, as I feel it right now, is the maximum tension that I've got from those springs. You can't obviously adjust this. You can't do it on the front. You do have to do it from the back. You can simply adjust the screw here, which reduces the tension that is available. There isn't a dramatic amount of adjustment range on these gimbals, but there is enough to make a difference. So I've adjusted that there, so I can now feel that the tension, that's more like, that's not quite what the Zorro is like, but it's a little less than my Zorro has come out the factory, but there is still some tension there, but it might not quite be as much as some people would like to be able to go hard against the sticks. If we tighten it right down, there is a nice amount, but I'll have to compare that to what it's like on the originals. Now, as I mentioned, both gimbals come exactly the same, so they are both set up exactly the same, so I'm going to have to configure that as we do the installation. So the next job is to get the radio apart and get them installed. Now, one of the questions I've been asked on the new AG01 gimbal is the spring tension compared to the original Zorro gimbal. So I've got both here. I've just removed this from the radio. I've currently got this set to maximum tension as I have on this one here. Just to give you an opinion between the two, I would say yes, there is a touch more spring tension on the AG01 Mini than there is the original gimbal, but it's not a lot. It could even just be to the way the gimbal feels in movement. There isn't a lot in it though when talking about that. Now, as for the feel between the gimbals, there is obviously a difference when you put them side by side. Having a feel, the AG01 is very, very smooth. It's less about the bearings, it's more about that metal feel to the gimbal, but just the overall solidness to it compared to the plastic one. The plastic one isn't particularly bad, I will say that, but there's definitely a more premium feel to the metal ones, that's for sure. Okay, now just before I jump over and give you my thoughts, I just want to share with you some tips on info on installation. As I've said, there will be an accompanying video with this, but I just want to cover a few specific things. First of all, there are a lot of wires in this radio. You need to make sure you take a picture at this point before doing your gimbals so you know where everything goes. The gimbal wires go down the bottom here, trace them back, make sure you know which one goes to which axis. This way, it'll be a lot easier when you put the radio back together. You need to be very careful of this ribbon cable, and there is another connector underneath this board, so when you lift it off, be gentle because there's a connection there that goes to the RF module. When fitting the new gimbals, be aware that there are some cables that go down the sides here. Make sure that they are not catching when you put the screws for the gimbals in, and make sure you have set your spring tension on the gimbals before putting this top board in place. Some of the adjustments are covered by the PCB, so you want to make sure the tension specifically is set correctly before going ahead. And my advice would be, on your throttle gimbal, add a little bit of grease onto this area here where the tension is, just to make it a little bit smoother. I found actually when I put mine together and tested it, it's just a little bit rough, more than I was expecting. So what I ended up doing is taking it back apart again, which is what you're seeing now, and I've just added a little bit more grease onto that. There's some on the original ones, but I'm not sure if the AG01s had it, so I've just added some super lube, which I use for my 3D printer, this stuff here, and that's just made everything nice and smooth. Before putting the radio back together, just make sure it's working. If you've got a 2S LiPo, that's the quickest way of doing it, plugging it into the bottom as I've just done. And don't get caught out by thinking, once you've fitted the gimbals, hold on a minute, why don't I have a self-centering throttle? Because at the moment it's sprung, and that is because the screw for that is in the bottom cover, not actually on the radio side of things. So you will only get that spring removal once you've put the back cover on. Don't worry, at this time it's still not kicked in. Other than that, on the installation point of view, it is quite a big task. You've got to take the board out, but just be aware to watch all the wiring, make sure you know where everything goes, and before you put the covers back in place, just make sure all of these cables aren't catching around the gimbal area here that go through the holes as well, and that way everything should be fine. So as you can see, I've got the gimbals installed, and there is no question that they don't look fantastic. Overall, I have to say the process is fairly straightforward. They do absolutely look and feel the part as well, with the nice light reflections around the machined area, especially when you've got them fitted with the red stick ends. Overall, the gimbals feel super smooth and absolutely solid up against the stops too. You will feel a difference on these compared to the plastics, and we'll talk about that a bit more now as I give you my thoughts. Okay, so it's time for me to give you my thoughts on the AG01 Minis, having now spent a bit of time with them. Now, I have to say, I really like these gimbals, but that isn't because they are so much better than the originals. The reality is, whilst the AG01 Mini feels really nice, really solid, super smooth, the overall performance of the gimbal isn't dramatically better than the original, and that is simply because the stock gimbals are very good on this radio. Yes, there's less flex, but there wasn't that much flex in the original ones. What you get with the AG01s is a premium, smoother feel to it, especially when you're hitting the stick ends. I wouldn't call them a performance upgrade in the sense of they're going to offer better stability. What they do, though, is give you just a nicer, more premium feel. Now, the question if that is worth it or not will really come down to if you're looking to have the best Zorro you can get. The stock gimbals are absolutely fine. They have great sensors, very little flex, and they generally feel very good. But if you want the best possible feeling from your gimbals on the Zorro, then the AG01 Minis are going to be what you want to look at. As for if they are worth the cost, coming in at basically the same price of the radio, only you can decide that. For me, I personally would say it's worth it because I do really like the Zorro form factor. I like the size, and it's nice to be able to kit it in the best possible way with CNC gimbals as well. Now, if you're interested in getting yourself a set of these, there will be a link to them in the description of this video. It is an affiliate link for Radiomaster, but if you don't want to use that, you can go directly to the Radiomaster website as well. Furthermore, if you'd like to support the channel to allow us to keep making videos like this, please do check out the links to my Patreon as well as Buy Me a Coffee too. There, you're able to support us to allow us to keep making content like this in the future. Anyway, that's it from me. Please do let me know what you think. Tell me if you've bought these, if you think they are worth it or not. Put it in the comment section, and if you have any questions, put it there. I will try and answer them.